Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the presentation, American Public University Systems Road to Victory, How a Small Team is Reaching for the Big Leagues. Um, if anyone has any questions for the presenters, please type them in the chat box, and we will address them during the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. For now, it's an honor to introduce the following presenters: Christian Kilbrew, Justice Hamilton, Tommy Knight, Japarish Griggs O'Neill, and Emily Briscoe.
Um, all right, well, good afternoon, everyone. I am one of the panelists. I am Emily Briscoe. And as said, we're going to introduce you to American Public University System, our team, the APUS esports team, Road for Success. So a brief overview of what we'll be doing is me and the president, who is Christian, will be talking about the overview of what esports is. And then in section 2, we will be hearing from our treasurer, Tommy, about the esports academic program. And then in the final level, we'll give you a taste of what it's actually like to play at a collegiate level in esports. And we'll hear from Justice and JP. So now I am happy to introduce, to get us started on the first section, our president, Chris.
Hello. So what we're going to go into first is we're going to delve into a little bit of history, but I promise not the boring kind you learned in middle school. So first things first, what is esports and how did playing video games on the family television end up becoming what's known as a sport? So we're going to be addressing some of the pivotal points in that history within esports of this section. Again, my name is Chris Killebrew. I'm the president of the APUS Esports Club. And obviously, I'm joined by our wonderful club secretary, Emily. And together, we shall delve into the history of esports. So everyone knows about the hit classic from 1972, Pong. In 1958, Pong came about, but it was actually called Tennis for Two. And it was controlled by a joystick to allow players to control the paddle, much like you'd see on like the Atari system. Next slide. Pong is considered to be the birth of esports due to its highly competitive nature. Next slide. And fun fact, currently the Guinness World Record for the highest score on Pong is held by Arthur 2000 on the iOS platform. In 2012, Arthur 2000 achieved a score of 102,480.
All right, so to talk more about kind of the first tournament of esports, so like Chris said, Pong was a huge classic hit because it was the first competitive video game ever created. The first tournament, however, was actually held from a different game, another very early market video game made in 1962 called Space War. And it is also the first video game to actually be on a computer monitor. So they had the tournament within MIT in 1962. But in 1972, so 10 years later, they had the very first Olympic tournament. So this was actually inviting other technical colleges over to MIT to participate. So you can see here that even way back to the 70s, esports was already developing.
Moving on to everyone's favorite, the arcade cabinets, or as I titled this, the Arcade Cabinet Wars. So arcade cabinets obviously hold a huge nostalgia for gamers everywhere. There really is nothing like popping that quarter into an arcade cabinet and attempting to beat the high score. Tournaments would be held in the late 1970s, 80s, and 90s, and even all the way up to present day, of course, where you can still come across a tournament at a local arcade. Some of the most popular games that you're going to find would be like Pac-Man, Space Invaders, and Mortal Kombat. Next slide, please. So, like I said, tournaments are going to be held from 70s to present. That's like kind of really when it started. Actually, that's a repeat of my slide. So, next slide. You're good.
All right, so like Chris said, these tournaments for arcades have been going on to the modern era, but kind of what really marks the start of esports itself and the way that we know it, like Halo community tournaments or Mortal Kombat community tournaments, or going back to Quake 2, which is another huge game, we talk about LAN. So that's local area network. And you can see on the slide here, this is kind of what it looks like. A local area network is a bunch of computers all pushed together. And it would normally be just a few friends playing together. But this also developed into places like Comic-Con, having very large gamer concentrations. And that meant you could have large LAN networks and huge tournaments there. Some of the very popular ones that still go on today are World of Warcraft player versus player, which is when there are two characters fighting each other to see who can defeat the other, and also Halo 2, which is when you start to get into the first kind of team matches for local area network gaming. And then very slowly after that, we see in the mid 2000s and into the modern day, you could do tournaments from across the entire world. So now I'm not putting my monitor next to yours, or I'm not going to your house to play on your Xbox. We are doing this worldwide via the internet. And now we kind of have a mix of that. So a lot of the time for us in APUS esports, we will do exclusively online tournaments, but very, very large kind of World Series, Super Bowl type games, those are all going to be in person still. So you have kind of a mix of in person and a mix of online when it comes to esports.
So in 2002, MLG, or Major League Gaming, was founded by Sundance Giovanni and Mike Sepso. MLG is actually where I started to come into the picture personally, because that's when I started playing a lot of online Halo and gaming with a lot of friends and stuff. So I know this is like a big part for me. But MLG quickly began to take over after we started to move away from LAN parties, and we started to go to like more big events and stuff. So this is kind of where you see esports really start to culminate together. The other huge thing about this is a lot of the sponsorship starts coming in for the industry. So you'll see Mountain Dew, Doritos, Red Bull, a lot of these major companies and brands, they actually start sponsoring a lot of these teams, much like they do other sports teams. So they want to get on the action, and this is where you really see esports start to rise. Slide. So here we are, present day. You can go on to Google, you can type it into twitch.tv, and there are so many different categories of gamers and streamers and content creators and huge esports teams that are just putting everything out there. What was once a small gathering of friends at an arcade or at a LAN party is now like a huge event, kind of like a Comic-Con in a way. And it really becomes just that, but it's everybody having a good time playing video games, and then may the best team win. And, you start getting into your cash prizes and everything else. But esports is now becoming a profession, much like football or basketball. And it's not on the same pay scale, of course, but hear that, Mom? It's a job now. Take that. So, internationally, the United States, weirdly enough, is not. It doesn't have as much of an impact here. And what the crazy thing is because a lot of these industries really began in the United States. But if you start looking over to Europe and especially in Asia, esports, they've already kind of had their Super Bowls. They've already had their big events to where esports is now becoming very much like it is soccer in other parts of the world. I did a little bit of research into it actually when I took one of our esports courses at the school, and Asia seriously, it is becoming a major part of their economy. Just the fact that people are able to go play video games, go to the internet cafes, compete at a very, very high level for major cash prizes. And they're starting to become televised all over the world. Next slide.
So to tie into kind of that international market, something really crazy that people don't realize about esports is on a national scale. So within America, like Chris said, but also international scale, we have viewership of esports that rivals the actual Super Bowl, which is one of the most watched sporting events in all of America. So for League of Legends, which is a type of multiplayer online battle arena where it's 5 people versus another 5 people trying to kind of capture the flag, right? You get a map and you seize what's called the Nexus, and that's the flag. When you do that, you win. That had a maximum viewership of 99 million people one year, and the maximum viewership ever of the Super Bowl is 129 million people. That's just the American market, though. If we're talking international, as esports become more and more popular, they become open to more people, it is actually projected to surpass the Super Bowl in national and international viewership in about 10 years, which is absolutely astounding. And then we can see this kind of interest in the sport being taken as seriously as something like football or soccer in how universities are now participating in esports. So there are esports programs in most of the Big Ten universities, Alabama, Penn State. There's one at the university I graduated from, Rutgers in New Jersey. And of course, APUS now has our own esports team. And we are pushing towards the goal of not just being recognized as a club, but actually being considered collegiate athletes and as a registered team with the school and also the esports collegiate bowls. And we're really hoping to bring other online universities into this, or universities who haven't quite gotten their esports team up and running. That's a huge goal for us at the APUS esports team. So that is our first section, right? That's everything about the overview. So now that you kind of understand what esports is and a little bit of the history, I am going to turn everything over to our treasurer, Tommy, aka Reap at Night, and he is going to talk to you about the esports academic program.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Emily. So at APUS, we have 2 different tracks for esports. We have the Bachelor of Science in Esports Business Administration and Esports Coaching and Athletic Development. For the Esports Business Administration, that is going to be all the stuff that happens on the back end, handling pay, finding new players, managing the team, all the things that you would think about in a typical job as far as like management. That is where that business administration degree takes you. So you're looking at taking that track and going into management of some sort down the line in esports. And that's the goal for where that track takes you. Whereas the other one is esports coaching and athletic development. That's going to be the coaches and sorry, lost my wording. Coaches and trainers. So it's that whole track teaches how to coach a player, how to go about telling them where they messed up and where they can improve, but also teaching them proper sitting techniques at the desk, making sure they're eating healthy and everything that a typical athletic trainer would do for traditional sports. There are roles for that in the esports industry. And that's where these 2 tracks will take you. We'll go a little bit deeper into both in the next couple of slides. Next slide, please. So coaching in esports, the 4 big areas that you want to look at are your game knowledge, your player development, your mental resilience, and communication skills. When going into game knowledge, this is a must for coaches. If a coach doesn't understand the ins and outs of the games, they cannot tell their team where they messed up or adjust on the fly in a tournament like, say, Counter-Strike, where it is best 2 out of 3 of the game. And the coach goes, hey, I see that this team is constantly doing a rotate toward A, but poking at B. And it's one of those where the coach on the fly calls a timeout, says, hey, this is what they're doing, start adjusting. And if they don't know how to recognize that, they can't be an effective coach. So that's where game knowledge comes in. As far as player development, I was just speaking on that. It improves their skills and their synergy between the team, practice sessions, reviewing gameplay, providing feedback. It's also making sure that they are taking care of themselves. They aren't spending 10, 12, 14 hours a day, every day of the week playing the game. That's actually been proven to be detrimental to your development as a player in that game, because you start picking up way too many bad habits too often and not being able to fix them. And then moving on to mental resilience. Mental resilience for a coach is just like any manager in any job. If you're not keeping your mental resilience of your team up, then the performance is going to slack. So if a coach can't recognize that one of their players is mentally struggling, or in the gaming world, they like call it getting tilted, which just means they're getting mad and their mental's not there, then they need to be able to talk them back and give them a chance to take a break from the game after whatever caused them to do the mental break, and just keep moving forward. A lot of teams will do what is called game nights, where they're not necessarily playing the game that they're pros in, but where they will pick a team game, whether it be Among Us or just some funny group game to play. So they're building their team resilience, but also taking that much needed break. Just like everybody else in a job, if you don't take the break from time to time, you're just going to get burnt out. And then the last one is communication skills. And this one's kind of clear cut, dry. If you can't effectively communicate with your team to relay what you're wanting them to do, they're not going to get to where you need them to do. Slide, please. Managing in esports is a little bit different. Like I said, this is going to be the track that comes from the business administration route. This is about team dynamics, logistics and scheduling, sponsorships and partnerships, and brand building. Team dynamics, they oversee the entire team structure, and that goes from, say, you're a general manager, you're looking at all of your directors, your content team, your marketing team, your clothing line, if you have one of those. That's where these managers will come in. That's what they oversee. You have other managers that are lower down in the totem pole, but their whole job is logistics and how they're getting their team to and from places, and scheduling those teams for tournaments and lodging, their pay, all the above. The big one right now in esports isn't mainly the tournaments, it's more their sponsorships and partnerships. So you'll see teams like FaZe, Optic, having partnerships with big name car brands, not just Red Bull or Monster, but they're getting car brands are now getting involved. And that just goes to show that in the world of esports right now, there is a drastic shift toward esports with sponsorships and partnerships, because esports teams are now getting sponsored by the same people that are sponsoring NFL teams. But as far as the management team goes, these are going to be the guys that are sitting in the negotiation, trying to get the best deal for their team and maintaining relationships with those partners after it's done. And then the last one's going to be brand building. This is going to be mainly your media guys and your PR teams. It develops the team brand on social media presence, helps engage with fans. And with today's society and social media being a big deal, that is where a lot of your face-to-face, if you will be with your community, is through your social media post. And that's pretty much all I got for managing esports. And we're just going to move on to the state of esports in America. This one I'm going to try to move through a little quick because Emily and Chris did touch a lot on how esports is in America now. The 4 points I have are industry growth, diverse audience, professionalism, and higher education involvement. The industry growth for this, you can kind of read what's on the slide. I have a little bit more that just made the slide way too crowded. The revenue in esports market worldwide is projected to reach 4.3 billion this year. So it's almost the end of this year. So we'll see if that actually did come to fruition. It's also expected to demonstrate an annual growth rate of 6.5%, which will result in a projected market volume of 5.9 billion by 2029. If that doesn't tell you that how much esports is growing as a whole, then I don't really know what will. The next is just diversity and the diverse audience. Majority of esports fans are male. That's just the unfortunate role right now, with about 40% of male respondents for a poll saying that they were interested in esports, but only about 15% of females. The numbers are going up little by little every year, but that's where it is right now. Professionalism, don't really have much more than what the slide actually says for today. Esports teams with established leagues, Call of Duty, League of Legends, Halo, are well organized. The leagues operate similarly to traditional sports leagues and have franchises and team building. So much like the NFL, this is where those leagues sit. And then the higher education involvement, which is where we are right now. Many universities offer esports programs, like Emily was saying earlier, Alabama, Rutgers, and a few others. We're trying to get ours from a club to a designated esports team so we can actually get, just like those other colleges, sponsorships for our students to play. And that's all I really got for the higher education involvement. Next slide. Sponsorships and partnerships. The big one for this is going to be your regulatory challenges. As esports go, regulatory issues are really big into gambling. If you are in the Counter-Strike community, you know that gambling in that community is terrible. Organizations are working to establish fair practices to protect players' rights. So they're getting more involved with contract agents and things like that to make sure their players are well taken care of. The emerging trends that are right now are promote diversity and inclusion within esports, where both players are represented within the industry. The rise of new streaming platforms has expanded. So instead of Twitch being the go-to streaming platform now, you have Twitch, Kick, Trovo, YouTube, and all of them have their own kind of base that watches. Next slide. This is where education can lead you to. This is the career versus yearly salary. So we chose to go with just a handful. There's about 21 different jobs you can get into in esports. We just chose these because these are the ones that a lot of people would look at when trying to go in. You have your coach, your managers, your journalists, content creators, your PR team, digital marketing, your agents, and your production. And you can see there your national average salary, your production and PR team tend to be more than your base level coaches and managers. Overall, this is where education can lead you. Like I said, there's about 21 jobs, but this is the kind of in and out of where people tend to go when they pick up a job in esports. Slide. With that, I will finish up my section, and I will be followed by Justice and JP, and they will be talking about playing at the collegiate level.
So hi everyone, my name is Justice Hamilton. Yeah, I'm the esports operations manager at APOS Esports. I also am the captain for the Rocket League team for APUS. So one thing that I really wanted to kind of touch base is I did see a question from Kelsey, and I know that we're going to do Q&A later, but this kind of falls into playing at the collegiate level. So we do actually have leagues for universities. So the APUS team plays in the NECC, which is the National Esports Collegiate Conference. And there's also, I mean, you have NACE, which is the National Association of Collegiate Esports. You have the ECAC, Eastern Collegiate Athletic Conference. So you have all these different conferences that schools can sign up for and compete in, depending on their location. And not only based off of location, but it's also skill-based too. So if you look at how college sports are, you have like Division 1, Division 2, Division 3 sports. It's the same thing with esports as well. So you're not playing against a professional level team if you're, let's say, a Division 3 level team. So that's something that is very user friendly to people wanting to kind of get involved with esports. Another thing is it's very flexible with your personal and academic balance. So usually our matches are on a Thursday at 9:30 p.m. So we have a person who lives in California and he's obviously 3 hours behind. So it kind of allows us to be able to change our schedule depending on each person's personal life. Because I work full time, so it's nice to be able to reschedule matches too. We have usually a week to reschedule matches. And not only that is we have very easy communications. So we all use Discord and it's basically exactly like Zoom. And we're able to, talk and we're able to share our cameras as we're playing. So it kind of feels like we're playing together. So yeah, go ahead, GP.
How you doing, everyone? I've been introduced by Emily. So I am part of APU S for the Call of Duty coach. And for the competitive side, it was my main bullet point: competitive versus casual, or casual versus competitive. When people hear esports, it is competitive only. There's little to no casual gaming involving in esports, because they treat those players as if you are playing other sports such as basketball or NBA or the NFL. So you are considered the top of that league or for whatever game system. So for instance, for Call of Duty, you have CDL, which is the premier Call of Duty league for esports. And within those specific teams such as FaZe and Optic, you have set people that is what they wake up to do, go to sleep to do, think about, eat about. That is solely what they do, such as playing Call of Duty. And that is one of the defining factors of differentiating between competitive and casual gaming. Within APU we do have our gaming club is for both casual and competitive gaming. We do not discriminate what your skill level is until you want to go be part of the team, such as Rocket League or Call of Duty. From there are certain skill sets that both me and Justin look at to make sure that, hey, you have what it takes to be a part of a esports team on a collegiate level. For the second bullet point, expanding student and players' knowledge of esports, I kind of hit on it on the first one, is that what is esports and why is it a thing? I've been in the esports or gaming world since 2014, 2015. I go to AMU through APUS for the esports business administration track. Esports, I've had friends and family say, "Oh, I don't want my kid to be stuck on the game all day," and they're not realizing that playing esports or playing games in general can and does show that it improves certain cognitiveness between players or people, and it can help them do things outside of gaming. And then the understanding of esports, as like I said before, is competitive. Networking among other collegiate players. This ties back into the sponsorships and brands and how teams are able to get those. For instance, there was a gaming convention that I went to in Washington State here last year, and it was a weekend, and there were 2 universities that had booths or tables that you could go up and talk to them about their esports. And I was able to network with them for the games that they play and to set up something between both our schools as well as other organizations as well. Next slide, please.
So when we get into actually competing, so what the Rocket League team does is we will have 3 scrimmages per week, usually running from about 1 to 2 hours. And then after that session, our coach will go over the footage and kind of see what we did wrong, what we did right, what we need to improve on. So kind of this graphic kind of shows like different possibilities that could be happening that our coach would go over, be like, okay, if this is going to happen, then you need to do this, basically. It also is extremely important for team chemistry and improving your skills. We usually like to try and scrimmage against teams that are better than us for when we play our official matches. Those matches might be either slightly easier or we're used to that higher pace of play. And it also provides a controlled environment for experimentation with strategies and teamwork too. So let's say we have a kickoff strategy we want to work on, then it kind of is like there's nothing on the line for our scrimmage, so we could practice a kickoff strategy or we could practice different rotations. And it also helps kind of build that like I said, that team chemistry. So, if you're talking to your friends or your teammates for, 3 hours every 3 times a week, not including the times that you guys play other games together, it can really kind of like build that bond together, and it really helps with playing. So yeah. Next slide. And also for community and school spirit. So representing a school can really help build that pride that people have among the program. We have what I would say is a rival school, Stevenson. We have yet to beat them, but what that time that we actually do, like I'm sure everyone that's within the community will be extremely happy. And that's being said, streaming our matches online on Twitch is a good way to get people involved into watching the matches that we have. And it also allows for the faculty to kind of see what our esports program is doing, and seeing, like, because a lot of them aren't very familiar with esports as well. So they're able to kind of see, okay, this is what they're doing. They're playing against this school, and it kind of gives them a little bit better of an understanding of what it is. Next slide.
So for game sense, so game sense, as the slide says, refers to intuitive ability to read the game, make strategic decisions, anticipate opponents' moves. So when it comes to the esports realm, specifically Call of Duty, because that's what I'm currently involved in, there's what we call knowing the map. And that's ties in with game sense. So for Call of Duty League, there's 3 different game modes that you tie into: search and destroy, which is an objective base, hardpoint, and then control. And it ranges from 3 to 6 different Call of Duty maps that you could or would play on. So your team, including the coach, has to know how to maneuver through each and every map on each and every game mode. And that just comes with playing with the same team, communication, as well as the map awareness. So all 4 of these: positioning, map awareness, rotations, and opponent movement all plays into game sense. And you can only get that by consistently playing that game. Slide, please.
Exotic took it off the roof.
Yep.
And they were playing in Neo Tokyo like this.
And Jolly was playing for the reset beat from the ceiling.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I remember the play.
Okay.
Yeah.
But this guy pushed in too close.
Mm-hmm.
So now his angle, it has to go back and square into the wall versus what Jay was arguing, which is saying he should play back further.
Yeah.
So that he could hit it forward.
Yeah.
Okay. By doing this and by rotating in the way that you're rotating in, what you are doing is you're forcing your third that if it goes over him and he has to inevitably force the play, you're going to hit it square into the wall.
Yeah. Okay.
You understand now
Yeah,
how
yep,
that's
that makes sense.
disadvantageous?
Yep. And I threw that video in there just because I wanted you guys to kind of get a short understanding of what some things that our coach would go over with. And that is just one very specific play in very specific positioning over the course of a 5-minute game. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide, Emily.
So, so opportunities from collegiate esports. So networking is definitely it's been thrown around a lot throughout this entire slideshow. It is probably the most important when it comes to esports because there are still a large population that for one does not know about esports or what it entails or how to get certain brands or go to that next level to do that. Um, of course, while you if you when you play for collegiate esports, your school as well as the gaming club, you do get recognition for that. I myself, I am in the United States Army. I'm part of the Army Esports. I have a role in that one. So we now have a bridge where you can do your externship program through AMU with Army Esports, and that will be able to give you an insight of what you could or would be what you could or would see in an esports organizational program. And that's happened in the last year. So that in itself shows you how other organizations, military or collegiate level, what other partnership pathways you're able to utilize. The esports improvement your social skills, cognitive skills, and behavior skills. So when you take either the business administration or the coach and player track, you go through these tendencies of how to improve these. I've coached a little league baseball, AAU basketball, and these are also skills that I've learned from esports that I've still used to this day with coaching the younger population. And then it will boost your strategic thinking and time management. Um, as as Tommy said about CS:GO or any type of fast movement first-person shooter such as Call of Duty, you have to be able to strategically or be able to make adjustments on the fly, and that is by playing said games only, such as if you only play Call of Duty, if you only play Rocket League, you will then be able to improve those things, which ties back into the game sense.
And I don't really want to, sit here and kind of repeat a lot of what JP said. But yeah, so obviously the career pathways in the gaming industry, a lot of what Tommy had covered, broadcasting, game development, coaching, marketing, a lot of different opportunities that can come from the collegiate esports scene. And the same as JP just said, networking is really, really big. I've met a lot of really cool coaches that I've become really close with just from competing for our Rocket League team. And I actually had the opportunity to go and coach for it's called Vanta Leagues. It's a high school development league. So one of the coaches from Stevenson had actually invited me to come and coach for them as well. So that's been a really cool opportunity. And obviously scholarships. So you have a lot of these top esports schools are actually giving out either partial or full ride scholarships just from successful players. There's been full professional teams that have graduated high school going into college that have been picked up from these colleges to play for them. And also for personal development, I think it's extremely beneficial to teamwork, discipline, and your leadership skills, especially from a captain role or a coaching role, because it really helps you figure out how to help your teammates or what could be your coworkers kind of get through tough times or get through those mental battles. I think that can be very, very beneficial moving into not just esports.
Alrighty. So moving into our shameless social media plug. I love saying that. It's fun saying that really fast. We have a bunch of different on social media, our Instagram, TikTok, Twitch. We also have our email if you guys do ever want to reach out if you have questions. If anybody wants these slides, we can obviously send them out. Just to move into our closing, we have thoroughly enjoyed being here today with you guys, talking sports and sports stuff. As you can see, esports is still a pretty young and untapped market. And it's really important for us, especially as students that are interested in pursuing careers after this, to be able to talk a lot about it, right? Because that's how we're going to get the word out there. It's not viewed in the same way right now as, say, the NFL, but as we were talking about earlier, 10 years from now, maybe. So it's really important for us to be able to try to carve that pathway for new students and esports players to be able to take over one day. So thanks again, and then we will move on to our Q&A. And that's that.
Are we going to read from the comments?
I can read
Yes.
them for you just to help you out. The first question I saw here was from Claire, and it asks, do esports segment players by age or gender like you might see in physical sports? Or is there a junior or masters division?
So I think
Justice?
I think
can-
Tommy wants like 2 seconds, and then Justice wants 2
Yeah.
seconds, right? All right, so let's start with Tommy.
Tommy, your mic isn't working.
Sorry, I was
There we
muted, so I wouldn't mess up. I know Justice touched a little bit on with the collegiate level. If you're looking at overall general esports when it goes to from pro level or collegiate, pro level, the earliest age that anybody's ever been brought into the pro league is 8. And I think that was Fortnite. So generally speaking, you can be brought into a pro league at 8 years old once you have a firm understanding of how the game goes. But typically with leagues like League of Legends, Halo, a lot of the Counter-Strike leagues, you have to be bare minimum of 16 or 17 to 18. A team will bring you on at 16 to train you up, but you will not play for them in tournaments until you're 17, 18 years old. So as far as in that sense, in the pro league, there isn't a junior or masters division. You are just thrown in with the wolves when you go pro.
And to kind of touch base on that too, from what Tommy had said, I know at least specifically for Rocket League, they're in France, they have a kind of like a league that trains these what people would call prodigies, or people that are very, very good at the game. It's a league specifically for those players as they get ready to hit the age requirement to go pro, which actually had dropped from 15 down to 13 for Rocket League within this last year. And then as far as the gender aspect of it, so there has been females that have qualified for main events for RLCS, which is the Pro Rocket League series. It doesn't happen very often, but it has happened within this last season. But there also is specific tournaments that are for females only, and there's leagues specifically for females to give them that opportunity to be more involved in the esports scene. Yeah.
Okay, there's another question here. It says, what all games have esports? I guess Eli's asking this. I guess he's asking the variety of games that we see for esports.
I can take that question. So in all honesty, for major esports leagues, for Call of Duty, there's CDL, for Rocket League, League of Legends, Halo, NBA 2K. So going into the sports world, NBA 2K League has an official league. The cool thing about the NBA 2K League is that actual NBA teams sponsor those 2K League teams. So for instance, the Dallas Mavericks, they take a portion of their funding, or however they get the money, to facilitate having an esports team, and that esports team name, image, and likeness is a part of the Dallas Mavericks. And they compete with other NBA teams on their 2K League teams every single year. Another thing that is cool about the esports world is that it doesn't have to necessarily be popular to be esports or to be a esports, because for instance, if I want to have an esports tournament for, let's say, Pac-Man, for instance, um I, there's different ways to get that information. I can have the Pac-Man machine in my house and say, hey, from this time and this time, all Pac-Man players can come by and play Pac-Man game. And then whoever has a high score theoretically would be crowned like the esports champion from there. So there's a and the list goes on and on and on, but usually with collegiate esports, it's usually defined as 1 or 2 or 3 games total, because you don't want to stretch your organization thin by having too many games to take care of.
Okay, very interesting. Is there any questions? Any more questions? I believe I caught them.
There's a
Uh,
Q&A icon down at the bottom that there's
Yeah.
2 questions in.
Oh, okay, I can see that. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay, so this question is for Emily. Since I see your bio, you're in the cyber field. What are your thoughts about the esports industry's responsibility to protect players, teams, and the industry from cyber attacks, threats, and cheating methods? Is there enough being done?
Awesome. Well, thank you for the question, Kelsey. This is actually a pretty topical question because I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, but there was actually a very large hack in the Valorant community where an entire team had a hack happen on them, which allowed them to see enemies through walls. And it was a huge scandal at the time. So it's a great question because that does happen in esports. And generally, that is the type of hacks which happen is it will give advantages or disadvantages in video games to a certain team in order to get them disqualified or in order for them to win. Because even if you personally did not input a cheat code, if for some reason you have a cheat in your game, you're not just disqualified for the tournament, but you could be banned from participating in the future. And it is odd that there is not a lot of cybersecurity in esports gaming right now. So the only type of cybersecurity that there is in esports that are not LANs, which are in-person local area games, if you're just playing on your computer, like you're playing Call of Duty, like JP does, or Rocket League, and you're just playing from your home computer, the stance from the industry right now is it is your responsibility to ensure your own cybersecurity. So you have to make sure your game is not hacked. You have to make sure no one gets into your machines. And the way that some companies like Riot, which is in charge of League of Legends, are doing that, or some other companies like Smite, which is another large game, is when you install video games now, there is an anti-cheat that goes very deep into your computer's kernel, which is its BIOS. Sorry, that's a really cyber answer. And that is the only real effort they've put into cybersecurity. So I don't think there's enough being done. I'm not sure how much I would like done, because if we are putting the onus on the video game companies to secure player machines, we're sacrificing player privacy. So thank you. I I definitely think that is a great question.
I got something to add with that as well. So when it comes to online tournaments, I've seen a lot in like in the Call of Duty field. The moderators or the people that's running the tournament, especially if it's online, they will ask you to share your screen and see your settings. And that then and there, because there are certain things that people that play Call of Duty consistently can say, like, oh, he's using walls or wall hacks, or they can see through walls, or he has aimbot to where every time he zooms in on his weapon on the enemy, it automatically locks in on that target instead of them free aiming. And the moderator after the game, and they have video evidence, they will ask the player, pull them aside and say, hey, can you show your screen? And they would go through the screen step by step through certain desktop applications or settings to see if they had anything installed that had them having mods or have a advantage while playing that game.
Okay, I see another question here from Meg. From an accessibility standpoint, do you think esports as an industry has an opportunity to be more inclusive for players than traditional sports?
Absolutely. You can see that even in traditional sports, they're trying to find like a workaround in order to make it somehow inclusive for other people to be able to do it, depending on what the disability is or the accessibility need is. Just as a point of reference, sometimes when I am doom scrolling when I wake up in the morning and I'll look at my Instagram feed, and I watched a guy play Call of Duty Warzone with a flute. So my real answer, if there is a will, there is 100% a way, and I have a firm belief that the gaming industry will find a way to make it accessible for everybody. In addition to that, you'll see a lot of the major companies that have skin in this game, like Microsoft. They have developed accessibility compatible controllers for the different needs of different people. So it is going to be far more accommodating, I believe, to this industry than it is in the physical sports industry.
Yeah. Sorry, Tavi. I think as the secretary, I get the last word, so I get the last question. No, I just wanted to say thank you, Meg, for your question, and I wanted to share a personal story about. Yes, I do think it's more inclusive. So I have a friend. Her name is Evie. She is a very heavily disabled streamer. So she has some fused limbs on her hands, and she has to have a custom-made controller. And like I said, she is a gaming streamer. She does play esports. I don't want to put her gamer tag out there, but she is also a trans woman as well. And she's been able to make professional esports teams, and she's been able to make ranked. She got her first sponsorship last year, just a very small one. I think it's Gamer Subs. Everybody loves Gamer Subs, right? So I couldn't agree more with Chris. I really do think esports can be really more inclusive than traditional players, but at the same time, there is an issue with regulation. So, like JP was kind of saying, you can't have special settings, you can't have special controllers. You have to be very, very careful when you get to a high level of playing where there are millions of dollars on the line of what you do allow. So I think esports has a lot of potential, but it does have a long way to go because a lot of the rules currently aren't 100% accommodating to people who have disability needs. So yes, great question, Meg. Hopefully we'll see more change soon. And if you're ever on Twitch and you see someone who is streaming with a disability controller, check them out. They're probably the best player you will ever see in your entire life. And then Tommy, did you want to speak on this as well?
Yeah, that was just speaking on with disabilities. We talked about the disability accessible controllers. There are also new things. I forget what it's exactly called, but it's a light bar that goes around the entirety of your monitor, and it's for hearing impaired. And as you're playing, if gunshots or something goes off screen some way, it will light up, showing that there's something in that general direction to cue them into, hey, I need to look that way. So overall, I think that in the next 5 years, esports will be more apt to be better for the disabled than traditional sports will.
Okay. looking here to see, I don't believe there's any more questions. Correct me if I'm wrong, though. So if there are no more questions, I want to thank everyone for attending the session. And thank you again to our presenters. And tomorrow morning, the sessions start again at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you.